Welcome back. It's 8:30. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Anne and Martin.
Let's speak now to Stephen Morgan, who is the Shadow Schools Minister. And a very good morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us. GB News here has been running a campaign called Don't Kill Cash, which we presented 300,000 signatures on a petition yesterday to number 11. And it would appear that they have responded. I just wonder what your thoughts are on the whole business of our society sort of losing cash.
Well, thank you for running the petition, because I know it's the poorest in society that don't always get access to cash. And certainly in Portsmouth, where I represent, people have really struggled when banks have closed and cash machines have charged people. So I think it's a really important campaign, and I'm really pleased the government have listened.
Stephen, the A-level results were out yesterday, of course. That's something that you'll be all over. There's talk about grades being deflated, previous overinflation. But I know one thing you're keen to talk about is the disproportionate representation of communities in the working classes, the attainment gap. What do you have planned for that in the Labour Party?
Well, the first thing to say is thank you and well done to all students that got their results yesterday, and thank you to teachers and school and college support staff across the country that have worked tirelessly to support young people across the country. But what we saw yesterday were unequal results across the country. Almost 40% or more, 40% more likely to get the top grades in London and the South East than you are in the North East. And I think this is because the government have said that they maxed out on support for young people post-pandemic. The tutoring programme has failed, and there have been real consequences for children up and down the country. Labour's plan is ambition for every young person. We want to make sure there's good pathways to good progress for every young person, and that means by putting more teachers and retaining teachers in the classroom to make sure that every young person succeeds.
But, Stephen, isn't the biggest damage that we cause to an entire generation through education lockdowns and closing schools? And that was something that Keir Starmer wanted sooner, harder and longer, even than the Conservatives.
Well, we obviously wanted to keep schools open, and many schools did for key workers. That's now in the past. What the government could have done is invest in a recovery plan that would have supported the tackling of lost learning. The government failed, and what we saw as the result was the education czar that the government appointed resigned because the fact the government weren't putting enough money into this. And the consequences are now being felt up and down the country, with not a levelling playing field that I would want to see.
It's interesting. I mean, you said at the beginning you congratulate all the youngsters who did well yesterday, and there will be some youngsters who feel that their A-level grades weren't good enough. Can I ask you, are A-level results that important, really? Because when you grow up into the adult world, nobody ever asks you for your A-level results, do they? I mean, do we actually put too much emphasis on these exams and not enough emphasis on maybe other ways into work?
Well, obviously that's what Gillian Keegan said yesterday. I mean, shocking that the Education Secretary said that. Of course results matter. I was the first in my family to go to university, and I really focused hard on my A-levels. I want to make sure that every young person can go on to succeed in life by having good pathways to get those good prospects for life. And of course results matter, exams matter. We want to make sure that every young person succeeds, and Labour's got a plan to deliver that.
Great. Stephen Morgan, Shadow Schools Minister, thank you for joining us this morning on GB News Breakfast. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I wonder, though, if you're watching it from home, what you feel about that, and whether or not it wasn't such a bad thing to say that A-level results don't matter that much. As long as there were other ways into work that you could say to somebody who was disappointed with their A-level results, maybe can't get into university after all, you could say, all right, but you could go and do a terrific, what do you call it?
Apprenticeship?
Thank you.
Yeah, yep.
For, in the city, for a big bank, for whoever. There are lots of ways into really good, profitable work that aren't necessarily university.
Yeah, and Stephen Morgan's party, the Labour Party in particular, Tony Blair said education. And I think we forced a lot of people down a route that perhaps wasn't best for them and was very expensive for them.
And has left them with a big debt, and maybe that not the right job after all of that too.
A big debt and perhaps over-expectation of where they can get and achieve in life, whereas what we should be doing is getting more people into
My sons have
trades.
moaned consistently that not only did they need a degree to try and get into the profession they wanted, they then needed a master's as well.
Which is ridiculous.
It's just too much and not necessarily the right way in. I never went to university. Used to be a chip on my shoulder. I think it's a bit of a relief now.
But look where you are, and what you've achieved in your life, your living.
Been able
route,
to.
You don't need to go
Michael
to
Parkinson left school with 2 O-levels and look how well he did.
There you go.
I'm sorry, it's not the only thing, getting A-level results.
Well said.
Anyway, we've got lots more to talk about because we'll be looking through this morning's newspapers in just a couple of moments.